Here. Here. This is Ginger. As I mentioned in the other video, Ginger's big problem is she does not like to come in when she's out in the backyard. Now, I think there's a couple things that are going on. The first one is she didn't really have any rules, and I don't think she respected her guardian as an authority figure, so to her, listening to the guardian was optional. Number two, she has fun being outside, like most dogs do. There's a lot of fun stuff to explore. What a lot of people do, I haven't asked the client this, but I'm going to ask her right now, have you ever called her in from the backyard to give her a treat and let her go back playing?
No.
So for her, every time you call her in, that represents the end of playtime. And if I'm a dog and I'm faster than the human and I don't want to listen to the human and I don't have respect for the human as an authority figure, I'm just going to stay outside and do what I want. I'm not going to listen to the human. So what we need to do is condition her to come on command. Now, I asked the guardian earlier what the command word was for come, and she said, I'm not sure. I guess like come here. On average, most dogs have 7 command words for every command action. Come here, over here girl, dog's name, whistle, tap my thigh. And there's usually an extra 1 or 2. So now the dog has to learn 7 different words for one action, and that makes it more challenging. Here. So as a result of that, here, sometimes it's faster to just come up with a completely new word instead of trying to brand the old word. Sit. So I've suggested the word here, which is what I use rather than come. So it's important that we only use this word. Now, one other thing is the guardian was using the dog's name as a way of correcting. So if she's doing the wrong thing, it was Ginger. Well, that after a while can create a negative association. I'm not going to come to you when I hear my dog name. So this is why I recommend to all my clients to come up with a naughty dog name. So if she's doing the wrong thing, instead of saying Ginger, maybe say Marianne or whatever the word is that you want, or the word naughty dog word is, or name is for your dog. And if it gets to the point where Marianne creates a lot of baggage, the dog doesn't want to come, then we throw Marianne away. Not literally, one of our favorite characters from Gilligan's Island. But then we call her Rose or Esther or whatever the word is. I like to come up with a somewhat humorous name because when we're using it, we're already cross with the dog. So it helps bring in a little bit of levity to it. Here. So all I'm doing is I'm just conditioning her here, that when she comes to me, something good is happening. Now, what I'm not saying is the word good dog. A lot of people say good boy, good girl, good dog. If your dog comes to you and you say good girl, and she lays down and you say good girl, she poops and you say good girl, she looks pretty and you say good girl, it means everything. So it really means nothing. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with saying good girl, but it just means that I'm pleased with you. Here. If I just use here, the command word, the same second that I apply a reward or a positive reinforcer, like in this case, a treat, and I only use that word, not good here, not come here, just here. After a while, the dogs key on the first sound they hear. So after a while, I say here, and I expect that means I'm getting a really good treat. Here. Now, I'm going to explain what I'm doing here. I'm going to put her in SIT this time. Sit. She's like, no, you're not. Here. So if you have a dog that has problems with that, here. You can forego that. I normally raise my arm over their head, and that creates an up, and as soon as their butt hits the ground, then I lower it and let them lick it off of my chin, off of my fingertips. At the same time, I use off my palm. At the same time, I use my fingertips to tickle them under their chin. We're not always going to give them a treat this way, but if we always use that same motion, then those times that we're outside and we don't have a treat, we can pretend like I have no pocket here, so I can pretend like. Now, because I don't have a treat here, I loaded one up. But you saw even just that motion, and I've been doing this all over. Like, I'm not one of those guys that does it online and teaches the dog first and then films it afterwards when the dog. I didn't know what she was going to do because I want to make it realistic, or it is real. So basically, when I call a dog, I start out with a 90-degree bend in my arm. I'm only showing you sideways just so you can see the 90-degree bend. I would extend whatever towards the dog, my arm towards the dog. Now, if the dog's over here, I don't cross my body. I would hold this arm, whatever's closest to the dog. Now, the more we say a command word, the less we mean it. So if I say come, 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 after a while the dog's like, I come on the 12th time that he says it. The other thing that we do frequently is we tell the dog, come, Ginger, come. And Ginger finally, 5 minutes later, we're like, Ginger, get your butt over here. And then when she comes, we put her on a leash, we jerk the leash, we say, next time I tell you to come, you better come right away. We're trying to say, hey, I'm mad at you because you didn't listen. Dogs learn through association, however. This is why positive reinforcement is such a great way to train your dog. So the dog hears, when I came to the human punished me. Now, the human's upset because I had to ask 12 times over the course of 3 minutes or whatever it is. But when that dog does come to you and does do the thing you want, you have to reward them as if it is the best time they ever did. And after enough repetition, the dog is apt to come the first time. But plus, like we talked about off camera, get your butt over here, doesn't really entice the dog and make it want to come. Yeah. Ginger, come. So what I do is I start out with a 90-degree bend with this part of my arm parallel to the floor. Now, if the dog doesn't come, which we can't see her because she's off camera, that's okay. What I would do now is I make a kissing sound, and then I start lowering the treat. The lower you go, the more it's for the dog. Ginger, come. Ginger, here. Good girl, yeah. Now, this is good because, like I said, she was coming good. I was trying to ask her to sit, and I think that threw her off a little bit. If you have a dog that won't come, if I keep on saying come, 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 again, it just waters it down. So now what I do is I have a treat here. I'm going to toss it halfway to get her to come. Now, I'm not going to say the word. Here. So she came most of the way. That wasn't a good toss. I would normally toss it halfway between. And if the dog won't come for that treat, then toss another treat halfway between that treat and her. So all she has to do is come and take one treat, and I'm like, well, another step, and I get one more treat. One more step, and I'm taking it out of the human's hand. Dogs get over things by literally moving forward, and we want to reward her for coming towards us. So instead of saying it over and over again or getting upset, just toss a treat, let her come to you. Now, one last little thing on dog training. A lot of people get frustrated with our dogs and it's our fault because we push too far too quickly. So what we want to do is when we ask a dog, Ginger, here, here. There we go. I lowered it. Here. And I just say just the command word when it touches her lips. Now, when we do training, we have a tendency, the first minute, once the dog knows what they're doing, they're pretty good. The second minute, we might get a failure, but mostly positive responses. When we get to the third or fourth minute, then we start getting more and more failures. Now, the dog's neurons actually do get fatigued in certain scenarios. Sometimes the dog just stops responding. You're like, yeah, I know you know how to sit. Why are you being so difficult? It's like if I'm lifting weights, I can only lift a certain number of times, and then I can have a trainer yelling at me whenever he wants to yell. If I reach my limit, I can't do it. And it's just my muscles have reached their limit, and that's the same thing that happens with a lot of dogs. So when you're doing training, you want to do these in 1 to 2 minute training sessions. Always, always, always end on a good note. If you're getting frustrated, stop before you push it too far. And that's why 1 or 2 minutes is nice and easy. We want to do it multiple times a day, and another little secret is to have your dog nap or sleep in between practice sessions. When dogs sleep, they kind of organize what they learned and put it away in their brain, and they can recall it later. So it's and the more you practice, the better, but the longer you practice, not the better. So we want to have a lot of short sprints sprinkled throughout the day. Now, one last little thing, we have a situation here where the guardian lives with the dog and there aren't any other humans that live in the house. Well, we can utilize what I like to call passive training. So let's say the dog gets up and goes to get a drink of water, and it comes back to me, I pet it and I just say the word here. If I have a treat, I give it the treat. I didn't give it the command to do that, but I'm rewarding the end action. And if we do that enough times in a row, or every time the dog, I come to the human, she pets me behind my ear, or all my favorite places, or gives me a treat. So the next time I hear the word here, because it's a new word, and every time I hear the word here, it's associated with this tasty treat, I hear the word here, and I come a-running because I'm going to get that. So again, for the door, what we want to do is we're going to practice this in the house to the point where the dog comes consistently. A lot of times people have a dog, and they're like, my dog's dog aggressive, let's go to the dog park. Like, you can't get your dog to listen to you in your living room. Why would you think you would have any control of your dog in a high stimulus environment? Outside is probably going to be too much for her. So what we're going to do is just do this in the house and rep it. Once you've done something enough times, our client here has a job where she does a lot of recurring things over and over and over. After you do something enough, you can do it in your sleep. You're just on the keyboard, you're not even looking. You're like watching The Simpsons and here and doing your work. After a while, the dog has enough repetitions of every time I come, I hear the word here, I come and I get a treat. I hear the word here, I'm just coming and running. Now make sure that when you're doing this, you're not just faking them out. Because once you do it fake out enough, they're just like, I'm not going to pay attention to that hand. But for this perspective, this looks like I'm holding something to the dog. So I don't have it flat. I have it slightly cupped. I try to keep the treat in between my knuckles, not over here. Here. then again, I like to scratch on the chin to facilitate that nose up. When a dog feels good about what's done, its nose is in the air. Here. Ginger. Here. That time I didn't have to lower it. Let's see if I can get a sit out of you. Sit. Ginger. Sit. Here. Well, it's right there, Reed. Here. And then I would tickle them under their chin. That way, those few times we don't have one, that tickle, like I said, will work. Ginger, here. Now I keep practicing this until I get to the point where the dog has a little bit of a bounce in his step. Here. Bounce in her step or his step. The dog just kind of wanders around like she is. She's comfortable coming and getting it, but we want that yippee moment where the dog's like, oh, and they have a little trot. That was when we really know that it's sunk in. Okay. We've only practiced this for a couple minutes. Ginger, here. Faster, here. We're not still to that yippee moment, we're getting closer to that. So you want to practice, like I said, multiple times. If you have, the best time to do this is having 3 people doing this. Now, right now, we have just the guardian and myself, so we don't have that third person. What I normally like to do, the way I structure this, is I would be here, the camera's about 10 feet away from me, and then I would have 10 feet away from me over there, maybe where that sewing machine is. So what I would do is have one person in charge. If I'm in charge, I point to you, and then the guardian says, here. Here. And then I would point to that person, so we don't call the dog at the same time. When the dog starts having that trot, that happy bounce to whoever calls her, after a couple of sessions, then I might have one person next time we do it sitting over there. Here. Here. And eventually, when she comes consistently, no matter, even though this person's behind the couch, then I have maybe somebody in the kitchen or somebody down the hallway or down the bottom of the stairs. So sit. Sit. So the dog has to go further and further to find the human. So I would keep on doing that until no matter where the human is in the house, you say the word here, she comes running very consistently right away. Now I usually like for 5 for 5 is what I call it, cold. That means like one time I say, well, that was great, here. So I call her here, and then I'll wait about 10 minutes, so I call it again. If I do that 5 times in a row, she comes consistently every time, then the next step would be to practice this outside, but on the deck, not in the yard. Now with the deck, we can kind of put a baby gate up and control so the dog can't get to the, but it's still outside. Now we have the sights and sounds and smells. When we move outside, a more challenging scenario, we make that circle or triangle smaller again, about 7 to 10 feet away. Here. Here. Oh, almost got a bounce there. Here. And then once the dog consistently comes there, then I might have one person go to the bottom of the stairs. Now she has an issue with stairs we're going to fix in a minute. But eventually when we go outside, we get to the point where we're further and further away from her, and she will walk to wherever we are in the yard to come and get the treat. Now the last step, and this is way too long of a video, but the last step that I do for dogs that won't come inside is I practice having the dog come to me to the door, give them the treat, and let them go back to playing. So now every time they call me, it does not represent the end of playtime. Now, if your dog won't come to you because it's afraid you've snatched the dog, usually that breaks the trust a little bit. I might have to walk 5 or 10 feet away from the door, ask the dog to come, give it the treat, and then go back in the house. Next time I might go, let's say I went 10 feet outside the door, next time I might go 9 feet, then 8 feet. And eventually it gets to the point where we just open the door and say, here. She comes there, she gets the treat, here. Oh, we had a little bit of a bounce there. Here. And then we get to the point where, oh yeah, here doesn't mean the end of playtime. It just means she wants to hook me up with a treat. And if you get to the point where you do want the dog to come inside, don't worry about that for now. We're instituting a rule, the dog's not allowed on the furniture. So if we do get to the point where the dog comes to me but is hesitant to go in the house, I touch the nose with a treat and toss it just right inside. The dog goes and gets it. I might say inside or whatever the command word is I want to assign for that. That way the dog comes to me and I say inside, the dog goes inside expecting a treat on the floor. So this is a very long video about how we can teach our dog to come and not ignore us when it's in the backyard.